Hi, my dear Astro family. Well, today I wanted to speak about the Pluto return a little bit. I know we've already covered this. I know I made a video about it sometimes last year, but I just wanted to recap on it. I went a little bit deeper in regards to this Pluto return because it's going to be actually happening 3 times. So I wanted to look at the individual charts, which are the strongest one, which one might be affecting the Pluto return in the US the most. So in order for us to kind of understand what Pluto is actually, a Pluto return indicates, we do need to be talking about what Pluto actually means in our chart. So, but before we jump into that, I am going to be making a webinar about love. And we're going to be looking at the challenging aspects to Venus, especially squares, oppositions, or even conjunctions. But this is going to be true for the minor aspect as well, such as in conjunctions and sesqui-squares, semi-squares, and so forth. So if you want to be diving into your love life, this in-depth 4-hour webinar on Saturday, which is going to be taking place at 3 p.m. Istanbul time in Turkey, then you might want to be joining. It's 4 hours, £25. But let's get started. So Pluto return, exciting. Because this is going to be the very first Pluto return, actually, which is going to be taking place the very first time on the 20th of February. Now, Pluto in the US chart is in the sign of Capricorn, around 27 degrees, and Pluto always represents some very profound change. It's the planet of cleansing, purging, regeneration. It's kind of like the phoenix bird is rising up from the ashes. So in order for us to kind of renew something, we always have to die in a certain way. So that's the reason why the planet of Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. Now it does talk about, Pluto is kind of like the ruler of the underworld. So Pluto rules anything which is unseen. Now, sometimes these unseen things are something to do with natural resources, such as gold or, or even oil and so forth. Even though oil belongs to Neptune, but at the end of the day, it needs to kind of be digged out. So therefore, the digging part is very Plutonian. Or it could talk about diamonds and precious stones and metals overall. So something which is really coming from deep at the bottom, in the earth, really. But also, unfortunately, this is the positive side of Pluto, the unseen kind of treasure. But we also have got, unfortunately, the negative side to it, which is about crime and theft and secret societies and spies and something to do with anything which is actually happening behind closed doors. Now, this is definitely something which is prominent, to be frank, in Pluto's case in the US chart, because Pluto is the modern ruler of the 12th house, which is also about the unseen forces. Now, for me, the fact that Pluto has got the Pluto in the US chart is in the 2nd house. Well, depending on what chart system you are using. So I'm going to be exploring a little bit both, and also depending on whether we are looking, what timing of birth we are actually looking at with US. Because unfortunately, we might not be able to, say out loud that Pluto return, is going to be happening exactly at the time when we are thinking, or which house is going to be happening. The reason being is because there are 2 birth time for US, and I use the Sibly chart, but there is another one out there which would place the Pluto in the 4th house. But let's just explore both of them a little bit. So the fact that Pluto is in the 2nd house, it very much talks about the natural resources of the country. So it talks about that, they have got a secret power going on, Pluto ruling the 12th house, and Pluto represents the power. it's kind of like talking about like a dictator. So they are the ones who are dictating what is actually happening in the world. And yes, unfortunately, Pluto, as being the higher octave of Mars, in many cases actually talks about world wars. Mars is a little bit more about, you know, it's a little bit more about just kind of like having a fight between two nations. Pluto can magnify that and then can escalate it very, very far. So as I said, Pluto is the ruler of the 12th house, which kind of talks about what is going on behind the scenes, but it can also talk about those big expenditures. So therefore, the 12th house can talk about the very rich people, the rich in a sense, the people who are actually leading the country behind the scenes. So definitely Pluto is a wealth planet. Now, the fact that Pluto is going to be returning in the US chart, for me, it indicates that maybe they have got some financial crisis going on and we need more natural resources in order for us to kind of, you know, get going. So, but Pluto in the second house also talks about the talent. So the talent of attraction. So it could actually indicate that they have got the talent to kind of give shelter to, for instance, foreigners and other countries as well. And that wouldn't be really the shock with quite a strong Cancerian interest, which is very much about, you know what, giving a shelter to people overall. Now, the fact that, now let me give you a couple of dates, because as I said, we are going to be having 3 Pluto returns in 2022. One of them is going to be happening on the 20th of February. The next one is going to be on 11th of July. And then the final one is going to be December 28th. Now, firstly, I'd like to point out that in the first 2 charts, nothing really special going on, to be frank, but the third one is going to be quite interesting to look at. But also what we want to be looking at is that when this Pluto return is going to get triggered actually. Well, the very first trigger of this Pluto return is going to be on 2nd of March, and Mars will be conjuncting Pluto. And then straight after, we're going to be having Venus coming around too. So I'm a little bit worried about this first Pluto return, because the very first one is always an indication of what to expect, I think, till about 2049. And the reason we're going to have to mark the 2049 is because Pluto will be entering the sign of Aquarius by progression in the in US chart. And by the way, after that, Pluto will be coming back also. And then finally it will leave sometimes in 2109 on top of my head. I didn't go that far, but anyway. So Mars will be triggering at the beginning of March. This could be a very volatile time. Mars being the modern ruler of Scorpio, and we also have got the South Node there now. The next trigger is going to be when Mars is going to be squaring Pluto, and that's going to be around 1st of July. Now, another important event here. Why? Because that's going to be also around the 2nd Pluto return. And then there is going to be a full moon happening, conjuncting this Pluto on the 13th of July. So that's also very, very important to mention. And then lastly, we're going to have Saturn is going to be conjuncting the progressed moon, which is also going to be happening in July. So this could be quite a hard time, especially for the country, as in the moon, but also just to the people overall. Maybe families, maybe the real estate industry could be a little bit of a challenge, but we can experience some challenges with that surely. Now, the reason why I wanted to drag attention to that Pluto progression is because it's sitting on 29 degrees. In traditional astrology, the 29 degree is an energetic degree. So it can bring crisis situations. It can bring kind of like a turnaround in a sense. But as I said, it's going to be very visible in the next 20, 25 years overall. But whenever a kind of like a Pluto hits a 29-degree by progression, that really talks about that absolute power, absolute wealth, absolute kind of terrorism in a sense. So we should be expecting some corruption going on, to be frank. But Pluto progression is kind of reminding us that the way how the government, for instance, Capricorn, is functioning is just not working anymore. Something needs to be happening. So it's a little bit of a challenge, surely. So as I mentioned, this energetic degree is a very active till 2049. Now, definitely, this Pluto return is going to be bringing in topics such as government, banking system, something to do with natural resources, power, lies, corruption, how we are manipulated, how we are controlled. And I think it's going to be bringing in some type of clashes with other people also. So one thing which I'm very much expecting is a huge political change or structural change overall. And of course, as in Pluto, which is the planet of rebirth, I'm trying to be very optimistic and say that this is going to be how to kind of stand up from the effects of the pandemic and kind of like coming up with a plan of how to actually move the world forward. And this is one thing which I really see here. But Pluto, at the end of the day, wants to destroy things, wants to kind of create some power struggles. So it's kind of like having opposing forces. So it might be that countries won't be kind of agreeing of the way we should be moving forward. And this could lead to some type of challenges. Now, the other interesting thing, which I also mentioned in my full moon video, but Mars and Venus are having a conjunction. Now, I would like to share a very interesting fact about Mars and Venus. Mars and Venus tends to be meeting around the same zodiacal degrees every 32 years. Okay? So the very last time when they met around Capricorn and early Aquarius was in 1989, 1990. So we might want to be going down on a memory lane and then looking at what was going on at that time, because it's important. This is the ruler of the karma. These are the rulers of the karma axis. So the very last time it happened was sometimes around 1st of December, 1989, between 1991, January 1st. So therefore, what we should be expecting, or let's just have a look at what happened there. So firstly, we had the Berlin Wall, which actually came down, and that was a major political shift, actually. Then we had kind of like this singing revolution going on as the Baltic states moved to declare themselves independent from the Soviet Union. And East and Western Germany actually were united. And there was the collapse of Yugoslavia. And also, Margaret Thatcher resigned as the UK's prime minister. So we had loads of shifts going on. But of course, we had some space telescope also were launched, and you know, other type of things were also happening. So as I said, the first conjunction is happening on the 20th of February. And then the second one is going to be including a Pluto retrograde. So how you should be seeing is that the first one is kind of going to give you clues of what to expect. So therefore, we're going to have to watching out what is going on around the 20th, 22nd of February. I would say till about 15th of March. The second one is kind of like, which is happening on the 11th of July. It's kind of like bringing back some of the topics of whatever we started seeing. It's kind of like the first one is something which is on the way. The second one is going to be about the changes are kind of reversed. And the third conjunction, which is happening at the end of the year, is very much about the completion of something, which hopefully becomes long-lasting. Now, I'd like also to point out that Pluto is actually conjuncting an asteroid called Pan, which is about panic. So this is also showing us that there is going to be a little bit of a panic attack going on. Now, looking at this first transit chart, and therefore I put it for you on the screen too, there is nothing like a major aspect really happening. So, oh, hold on, just give me a second, please. I managed to click away from somehow. Yeah, so here you go. So now you should be able to see the chart on the screen. So as you can see, nothing really going on. Well, a couple of things which I would like to point out in this chart, but that's general for all of the Pluto returns. Pluto return is actually opposing Mercury, which is the ruler of the 7th house. So therefore, this is talking about some confrontations with others when it comes to natural resources, financials, and not just financials, but something to do with the give and take type of element, because it happens in the 2nd and the 8th house. So let's say I'm giving an army to others, or I'm giving money to others, and we are not giving as much as we actually were expecting. And unfortunately, Pluto is opposing part of fortune as well. So it kind of indicates an unlucky period coming up, to be frank. So I wanted to kind of point that out, which we might need to be careful about. Another thing which I would like to point out is that Venus actually went retrograde on that Pluto return point a few times. And Venus rules here the midheaven, which is kind of like the final destination of the country. It's something to do with the professions. It's something to do with the way how we actually operate. So how I kind of see that playing out is that something to do with the workforces, and there are things which are going on in the background to kind of build the society up a little bit. There are certain type of plans around it, but probably these plans have been reviewed plenty of times. Now, another planet which is actually playing a very significant role here is Neptune in Pisces, because that is having a opposition to the natal Neptune in Virgo. Now, it is happening actually in the 4th and the 10th house, which is very much talking about there is kind of like a confusion going on between people and the government. Or it might be that somehow we are misled in a certain type of way. And my other problem is that this Neptune is actually activating the Mars in the 7th house, so creating a T-square, which is really much talking about, you know what, we can actually, it can lead up to some type of arguments really with others. Neptune is one of the slowest planets of the sky. It takes about 165 years to get through the zodiacal signs. So that's definitely a long-lasting experience for us. And Neptune is the planet of fantasy. It talks about the dreams, the inspiration, the way how we are actually misled, but it also rules some of the natural resources such as oil. So last year, sometimes in February, March, I made a video and I said, the oil prices will go up significantly. I really recommended some people to invest into that. And it will be even hitting heights probably in April, May also. Okay, so therefore, you know, I still believe that the car industry could be struggling, especially with the Pluto Mercury opposition, what we see currently in the transit charts as well. So now I do believe there is something to do with the labor here. I think there is new ideas and visions how to kind of save the world market, and they want to transform something in the world market. And something probably which is kind of beyond your own imagination. Now, of course, Neptune is all about speculations, and to a certain extent, it's about worries as well. And this is exactly what we are doing here with astrology as well. You know, we are trying to speculate something but we can only talk about energies. I'm not going to be able to tell you that, you know, you should be taking out your money of the bank. Actually, I received an email this morning. Shall I take my money out of the bank? Because I'm very worried. And to be frank, I'm also worried. Okay? Let me just put it down that way. Now, the next Pluto return, as I said, is on in July 2022. And to be frank, it is after the Independence Day, so it's very close to the 4th of July. But I don't necessarily see such threatening things, because the Neptune kind of energy has gone already. The natal Mars is not really triggered here either. So for me, it's more likely a little bit kind of like a peaceful period, really, if I really, really want to be optimistic about it. And the reason why I believe that the natal Mars is kind of calmed down, because transit Venus will be bang on Mars. However, we should not forget that we're going to have a retrograde period starting from Mars later on, sometimes in October. And that's the reason why the third one is going to be very, very important, which is going to be happening on the 28th of December. And this chart looks full of tension, really. It's about explosion. So the Neptune to Neptune opposition is back in the game. Then we've got the Pluto conjunction. Then we've got Mercury opposition to natal Mercury. And Jupiter actually also will be already in the sign of Aries. So Jupiter can magnify that fighting spirit within people. It kind of activates things to get the ball rolling, in a sense. So I kind of believe that the last chart is a little bit of a rocky one. And that's when the profound change overall will be happening, which we do need to be very careful about. Now, of course, what we can also do is that we can be looking at some of the major asteroids too. And I'm also not necessarily liking that Uranus will be very close by to Vesta, also in the 6th house, which could be a little bit of a challenge, because that is talking about, Vesta is a investment asteroid. So that could be bringing some sudden collision or collapse of some of the investments we are having. So guys, this looks a little bit challenging. I just wanted to make a very brief video about this, highlighting some of the things which I think we need to be paying attention to. I did not want to go into depth because I did make a video about Pluto return before, so you might want to be checking that out. But the reason probably the last one is also important, because the Pluto-Mercury opposition, which was going on in the first and the second one, this time around Pluto will be conjuncting Mercury in the last segment. So it's kind of like you know, a new cycle is starting between Pluto and Mercury, and plenty of secrets will be revealed there surely. Another interesting thing what we can see here is that we've been having plenty of full moons and new moons happening on 27 degree. There will be, this is the 5th full moon, which is happening on 27 degree. There will be 2 more. But the reason why I find it very interesting is because we, of course, have got the Pluto return also happening on 27 degree. And another interesting factor is that, of course, the nodes are on 27 degree also at the moment, especially at the beginning of February. So we've got so much to do with endings and new beginnings coming through this time around. So for me, it is an indication that something needs to be, change. It's a profound change. Now, of course, the nodes are at the moment in the sign of Taurus and Scorpio, which is very much talking about the cryptocurrency and talking about something to do with the financial situation of others. Also, this is the axis of sex scandals also. So it's very possible that we're going to be experiencing some sex scandals. But, staying just with this return, I kind of feel like this is very much about it's very much an astrological mirror of something which was going on 32 years ago, as I said. Pluto can actually talk about how the two political parts are actually kind of colliding somehow. So it could be just experienced somehow within the country as well. And then we've got the 2nd of March and the 3rd of March, which is going to be very interesting because also Venus will be very close to this 27 degree also, and it went retrograde on 26 degree of Capricorn. So again, this 27 degree is a very crucial for somehow. I'm expecting something to be boiling at the beginning of March. And knowing that we've got Russia, Ukraine type of situation at the moment, to be frank, I don't think it's going to be, it's something which we might not be able to avoid, unfortunately. And of course, if you are looking at the historical cycles of the nodes, well, they tend to be shifting sign approximately, making a zodiacal return every 18, 19 years. So they are considered extremely slow in a sense. And of course, Pluto is about 258 years. So by the time they actually meet is quite rare. But this time around, they are, because they are having actually an exact trine going on. So what is really talking to me about is that it's for the greater good, really. But with Pluto, we always have to be expecting upheavals, kind of like a tide, really. It's kind of like a storm, probably economic shocks, probably somehow it relates to some economic karma as well from the from the previous war, what we experienced, which of course was in 1939. And interestingly enough, also we had a Uranus and the North Node conjunction happening around that time too. So that's definitely important. And the reason why probably the 2nd Pluto return is important, 11th of July, remember, because July and August is the month when Uranus and the North Node will be having a conjunction alongside with Mars on 18 degree of Taurus. And of course, Taurus talks about the global economy. So it's going to be very active sometimes at the end of July till the 2nd week of August overall. So the economic situation around that time could be very stormy overall. So yes, guys, that's all I wanted to share for you today. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, just go ahead and press like. See you soon. Bye-bye.